Hello and welcome back. My name is Faye. I have been inspired this morning to have a little bit of a conversation around precognition. Now, precognition being something when we're exploring our psychic abilities as information, pictures, images, insights from a future timeline that are brought to our attention in the present moment. Now, the reason that this came up in conversation was actually through one of my students in the House of Mystics. We're approaching the end of our journey together, where the women in the group have been developing their psychic abilities. And the way that I teach our practice when it comes to perceiving energy is not with the intention to directly predict the future for someone. So if we're working as a reader, if you come and book a session or a reading with me, my intention is never to tell you what your future will be. Uh, we do work with something called destiny points. So if you've had a reading with me, you might have heard me say this before. There's something that my guides show me as a destiny point that kind of runs through all levels of your reality, that regardless of your level of consciousness, you're going to experience this destiny point, as they call it, through the level of your consciousness. It's usually highly connected to contracts. So, an example of that I often use would be like a relationship. So, there's a contract here for a relationship. Now, regardless of an intimate relationship, like a romantic one, right? Regardless of your who that person is, it could vary depending on your level of consciousness, whether you healed your past trauma, whether your inner child is integrated, whether you are in a space where you have learnt to love yourself or not. The way that the relationship manifests can vary, but on all levels of your vibrational reality, there is a relationship contract that runs all the way through. So I kind of see this like imagine a whole stack of books on top of each other. It's a nice example. And as you have that, all of those stacks of books have information and data about this relationship, and each book is an expression of your life, the way that you experience it, but it varies in degree of consciousness. Our consciousness is limited by our own awareness, but it's also affected by our vibration. So when we feel really flat and our vibration is really low, if we are not able to stay steady in the light or connected to our heart and love and kindness and those sorts of things, we can actually enter into a space where we are spending more of our time in and around lower sort of astral activity. So in that space, regardless of where we are in reality, we can have the tendency to attract a relationship based on our vibration, based on our past decisions, based on our intentions, and all of it is perfect. So these destiny points are something that we can track. It's actually a lovely intention if I'm setting up for a reading to have a look at these destiny points, because if I can guide you toward a destiny point and you can fulfill this contract or experience it or say yes to it at the highest potential that's possible for you, you're going to have an expansion in your consciousness. You're going to fulfill a part of your soul's contract. You're going to become more of yourself. You have this beautiful opportunity to learn something. And it's in alignment where all levels of your being are working together. And so you end up feeling like a sense of purpose and connection and meaning and depth, regardless of how that manifests or what level of consciousness that manifests on. Now, the reason we look at it like that is because we've come into a time when I zoom right out and I'm kind of having a look at this in a way where I do believe that foresight and psychic readings, where we're predicting a future once upon a time, would have been really valuable. Valuable in a time where we had less data, less opportunity, less information, where there was denser programming, deeper conditioning, and our consciousness was not as expanded into that space where we have gotten in touch with our ability to be able to participate as a co-creator in the way that our life unfolds. So we are in a space right now where we have the opportunity to make more decisions, to improve our situation. We have access even just to vitamins and minerals that help our bodies function differently so as that we have more energy or vitality to overcome a disease if that's part of your challenge, or to receive help if you've been in a violent relationship and it's like there are so many different examples where we have more opportunity for growth. And now, without putting this in a kind of a really human lens, there's this experience here where two, just less information and a smaller playground where your opportunities were limited because you lived in a village and there was 25 potential people you could have ended up in a relationship with, and two particular roles, or there's more of your journey that is set in stone. And whilst it's not a bad thing, what we've done in this era is that we've opened up for possibility. In the same space, we've opened up our knowledge. Knowledge has a huge part on our wisdom. It informs our decisions. It helps us explore ourselves and the world around us. We have access to more possibilities, different roles. We can travel. We can be in 10 different cultures all in one year. So there's sort of more depth to our experience, and there's more possible timelines, just as a matter of fact, that we could go down. So even if you were born in England, you could end up living in Tasmania. If you so, and this changes the people we spend our time with, the roles that we have in society, and how we experience our bodies, how we experience our life, how we experience connection, how we experience depth, but also how we experience our contracts. And our contracts are these beautiful pieces that we look at as something we've created when they're of the light anyway, created before incarnation here on earth, designed purposefully to begin to awaken the soul, to have the fragments of the soul to move into a space of wholeness, to move into a space where we return to who we truly are, perhaps. I don't really know, right? But from that perspective, we're looking at expansion. That's really how I see it, just this lovely expansion. So we come down here to expand, to experience, to explore, to grow, to learn, to participate, to contribute to this beautiful ecosystem. So once upon a time, foresight would have been one, much more easeful to be accurate and truthful. And so you can choose like a potential, like the highest path out of, say, like the three possibilities or the three outcomes. Whereas now you can tune into somebody's field and there can be vast opportunities, not just in the horizontal plane, but also in this vertical plane. When we start to look vertically, when we see someone grow or their consciousness expands or their light quotient expands because they've done work with the healing and the conditioning and the programming and the density that's been held in the being, or not in the being, but in the other aspects of ourself, starts to transform, it's alchemized, it drops away, it's integrated. Where we have that beautiful movement, we have more space. We have more space for light to come through, and then we have this shifting in our vibration, and at the same time we often shift in our perspective or within our view. The lighter we get, the more open our higher chakras sort of become. When I say the lighter as well, it's just less programmed. I don't really know how else to simplify it, but we know the difference between density and energy. If I'm to zoom up on something that looks really, really dense, it's like the little particles of energy are super, super close together. There's not a lot of space, there's not a lot of movement. There can be habits unfolding in this, things that are just happening unconsciously. So as we become aware of this, we start to bring movement and space and life and choice and will back to these experiences. We have more space, more room, more openness, and more opportunity to get in tune with our creative abilities. Because what's going on in our inner world is basically directly what we end up experiencing in our outer world, or what we're attracting, what we're magnetizing, the opportunities we're calling towards ourselves. So we start to step into this space where we're far more connected to our creator ability, where we can begin to question the purpose or the value of a psychic reading or receiving guidance from a psychic. And sometimes that is, and where precognition comes into all of this. So, precognition is receiving information about a future timeline that arrives in the present moment. And as a psychic reader, that information can be interpreted, it can be inquired. Sometimes it's just a simple pocket of information that suggests there's a new job or the perfect relationship or a holiday that's coming. Like these are sort of like examples of information that could come through in the future, right? Obviously more personal to you and more data that's usually involved in order for you to be able to experience some form of evidence like connection to it inside of your being, something that you're consciously even working towards. Regardless of the nature of the information, it comes in, and instead of setting that in stone, we started to have a conversation, or we were answering a question around precognition and its purpose. Is it valuable now? Is it true now? What's the nature of it now? Because sometimes this is a natural byproduct of psychics or empaths or sensitive beings, intuitives, and they start to develop their psychic abilities. They start to get precognitive insight and information come in. And at the time that it's happening, it might not even be that there's an action involved or that that guidance is passed or that information is passed on because it's not yet guidance. That imagery is passed on, that the knowing is passed on with an awareness that it's a future piece of information. And what this question was that came from this beautiful student was around, well, what's the purpose of that if I'm to realize that it was a precognitive like psychic insight once I've arrived at the space and it unfolds and it happens. And so there's so many different directions in which we can look at this, and I'm kind of trying to paint a little bit of a map so you can explore some of the complex but also beautiful nature of how these senses work. And there's so many different dimensions in which precognitive information can be valuable, but where it also needs to be handled with great care. As a reader, once upon a time where there is less expansion or possibilities in your potential timelines, where we're not so connected as a race to our ability to be able to create our experience or co-create our experience, there's a little bit more limitation. So in guiding someone along a path can help them focus, can help them feel more meaning, can help them see the beauty and the simplicity of their experience, can help them be more present in their life. Now, that experience can feel very rigid. It can feel very collapsing. It can feel almost like it limits our experience if somebody is to come through and pass on psychic information that is expressed or delivered in a way that suggests this is your future. So if ever there is like a what I would call a destiny point that comes up in somebody's reading, I want to be really mindful always that I'm acknowledging and passing on this information as an offering, and that it's delivered in a way that this is a potential outcome if we are to take steps 1, 2, and 3, or if we are to overcome obstacle A and B by applying this specific practice or resource or letting go of this specific program or this specific wound, then we have the opportunity to align with a potential future outcome. But you always have a choice. So the relationship, if we're looking at that on our different levels, so that reality not only is on this horizontal plane, but it's also on this vertical one here. And the higher up you go, the different the experiences look, same as when you go lower down. The way things manifest is going to be different. But if we have a destiny point, then we can pick up future information about the relationship. And again, it can be really supportive to be able to direct somebody to a higher timeline or their highest possible timeline, given their soul contracts. And all of this is our intention around the information that allows even more clarity on delivery and a felt experience of this information awakening inside of this person that makes them feel empowered and clear and excited and energized to be able to take action towards this experience. then it can be a really beautiful offering of hope. It can open our awareness to the possibilities. So, but all of this needs to be designed in a way where you're giving full power to the person that's in front of you to either go, that completely doesn't resonate with me because I don't feel it at all, or I'm not interested in that at all. That's something that's just going to float by me, or it's something that opens up a lens of possibility that actually helps us when we're very expanded and we have a lot of possibilities to start to kind of narrow in, where we can start to concentrate our energy a little bit more intentfully. When we can concentrate our energy and we can focus on a particular point, just like you might be focusing on listening to my voice right now, you might also be cooking a meal or walking your dog. You could be doing two things at one time. Say you then had 10 other activities or different other possibilities that were going on. What starts to happen is our attention and our awareness becomes sort of splayed in all these different directions. And our spirit is going to those spaces. Our energy is going to those places. When we want to create something and we want to transform and shift our reality to actually birth an experience or manifest something or arrive at a destiny point and deeply fulfill it, on all levels of our being, we need to be able to concentrate and focus our light and our awareness in a particular direction, even if that is to go with the flow. To go with the flow, you're going to have to be able to relax. You're going to have to be able to let go of all your attachments. Like, these things are multifaceted. So in that beautiful flow, if we can use this as an offering, a vision is something that somebody still can work with. Now, a vision needs to move through the entire body and being, through the chakra system. It needs to move from the third eye down through the throat before it gets language, which is what a reader is sometimes doing. They're bringing language to a vision or a picture or an image or a possibility. And in the delivery or the offering of that, it's up to the person as to whether or not that touches their heart. They have will from the center of the throat. There is a space where it's cast out into the space as something that this person's heart opens to and accepts and begins to create, meaning that it grounds into all of those lower chakras through their mind, through their emotions, through their physical action towards that vision. And that can be really helpful for people that are lacking a vision, but they have a felt sense about what it is that they want, or they're open to possibilities. They just have a knowing they want to fulfill their soul's mission. So we can start to bring texture to this. Also, what we want to understand with the nature of vision and picture and image, if that's the form in which this information or this guidance comes from, is that it often speaks quite metaphorically. If we take clairvoyant pictures and images very literally, we don't leave a lot of room for the person that is receiving this information to make changes to the images, for it to be pure of essence. A metaphor allows for the experience or the felt sense of that vision or that image to be filtered through the lens of the person's consciousness that's in front of you. I know that sounds complex, but it's more just I hope you understand what I mean. I'm not going to break that apart. But based on your level of consciousness, the same experience is going to be perceived very differently, especially when we're looking at lenses, filters, our ability to be able to perceive the truth, how deeply we are really perceiving. And so the importance of this, it's not that it's not valuable, it just needs to be handled with care. It needs to be handled with a sense of permission as well. So if you're doing a reading for somebody and your future predictive, you're getting precognition, we need to be able to ask questions and interact with the person that's in front of us. Sometimes that comes with a little bit of practice. So we go into a space where our client says, oh, I want to know about my future job, my career. I'm not happy where I am. I want to go in a completely different direction. Instead of setting that person's career in stone because they're opening up and they're going, I'm giving you all of my power, we need to be able to address that this person is the most powerful person that exists, that it's absolutely up to them what happens with their reality. And we need to remind them that the information that we are delivering is just an offering. It's a potential future. And if they wanted a job such as to be a teacher, but they're currently a fireman, these would be the practical steps or shifts in order to make that transition. But don't be afraid to ask questions. That would be the other piece here. Are you open to having a look at the future possibilities versus laying it all down and, in front of them like a one path red carpet and this is how life unfolds? That's where things can become really dangerous. As a reader, I think it's really helpful to have readings with other people to see the effects that information and data in that space, especially if you have people that are feeling really vulnerable, are feeling really hopeless, are feeling really stuck or stagnant, or they're very depressed, or there's a lot of trauma. All of this as a practitioner needs to be taken into consideration because the direction towards a specific goal you could look way too far. You could be looking 10 years down the line, and this person is a year into working towards the information and data that you've given them, and they thought that they were supposed to already be there. So all we do is create a cycle for them in offering that information that leads to a lack of self-worth and a lack of self-esteem and a lack of hopelessness. These things actually happen. The other input with this is it's information that we're sharing. So again, it's an offering, not a projection. It's a space that we open to explore information. And it's really, really important that with this information that unfolds in this space, that we are coming from a space of love. If you've sat in the space, and I have sat with other readers, and it's important as a reader to experience the way that other people work, as I was saying, so as that you can feel the quality of that information and how it touches your system. Meaning you need to be able to not merge with your clients so that you're not entering into their field or into their matrix and planting seeds in their template that continue to grow, whether consciously or unconsciously, because we do have the ability in this space when someone is open and vulnerable and they're saying, they want something there, they're open for an offering. That offering needs to still contain their will so as that it doesn't trickle down and start to grow in the background or outside of their awareness where it's almost left unkept. So there's a level of consciousness that language needs to address, which happens in time and in practice too, that I wouldn't necessarily say to somebody, even if I saw that their father was sick and there was a problem with his heart and he might, we need to be mindful with data and information like that, even if you are accurate and it is true, that is that information useful and helpful for the person that's sitting in front of you. So fear-based readings are an absolute no-go. And you will feel a fear-based reading if you're sitting in front of somebody as a huge big blow to your solar plexus. It will spike your adrenaline and your cortisol. It can increase a feeling of anxiety and tension. It can activate your ego. You can feel like you're drifting out of the session as in you're struggling to remain present because there's a resistance to the information and your system is going into self-protection. But the aftermath of it is that it doesn't continue to generate a sense of empowerment or light or a feeling of openness and expansion and joy and light and evolution and movement. Fear-based energy ends up feeling like we end up more stuck. So it can feel solid, it can feel dense, it can feel like it just is really confusing. But the nature of fear-based information and energy doesn't really serve anybody. So if I was to see, say, like a car accident happen in the background of somebody's field, I would be looking, is this a metaphor first? Because often a car can be shown as the person's physical body and how they're fueling themselves, how they're taking care of themselves. So I'd be asking, is this literal or is this metaphoric? I'd be looking at the pace in which the car was moving, and then I'd be looking at what happens after the car actually hits the wall. If I was just to, as an immature psychic, look at that pictured image and go, oh, I've seen a car accident, but I've given no other information as to whether that was literal, metaphoric, what the outcome of that was, then every single time that person gets into their vehicle and into their car, they're going to be afraid that they're about to have a car accident, right? And what we think about, what we feel, what vibration we're in affects the outcomes of our reality. So that person, even if that information wasn't true and it was a metaphor for the physical health of the body coming to a standstill, or a change happening, or an ending, or a transition, it can be read from the light as a possibility, then this person can end up creating that outcome. And that's the danger of psychic readings and the importance of being able to attune to the light, to be able to connect to the truth, to be able to filter out the pieces that are fear-based, and to be able to hold a higher perspective so that we can help people navigate a way through. It might actually that scene plays out, say it is a car accident, and I get, okay, that's literal. Am I better off to say to that person, you're going to have a car accident, or let that piece go? Like deeply, truly, if it's inevitable and that's a set in stone outcome in that person's reality. It sounds like a harsh piece, and you might look at that information. I can feel for some of you, it might be like, well, of course you tell the person, but what, like if it's set in stone as a destiny point that this is a part that how this piece manifests, then what's the point? So why are spirits showing you this? That would be the next question I'd be asking. Because if they're showing you a piece of information that puts your client into fear, even if you've gotten a, yes, this is a literal experience. I do sense and see a car accident here. Okay, there is awareness stirring around this. What next? What's the evolution point? What's the guidance around this then? How do I deliver this message as light? And is it something best just left? And that's a quality that you might sense as a reader as immature, but I actually think that it's a mature response to a piece of information that is indigestible and becomes a toxin to the person's system. Guidance has to be able, we've got to be able to chew on it for it to be able to digest, to be able to absorb all of the beautiful nutrients, which is the yes permission from somebody's heart field, versus it being shoved down or planted in the ground, where that person then either needs to weed it out by clearing it from the matrix, right? Or accessing it in their subconscious and releasing it, which a lot of people who are coming into that space either don't have those resources to do, or aren't yet expanded or aware enough to even realize that those types of pieces are planted there in that space, there on the edges of the field. So the most important piece that I would ask in that situation is, who gave you the picture and the image of the car accident? Because my beautiful team, and I'm so um, there is so much precision involved in the invocation process and energetic hygiene and keeping your channel really clear as a reader. That is no joke, because just because we're psychic, just because we have the ability to pick up on information, just because we can see pictures, images, telepathy, because we have knowings, because we have feelings in the body and the being, doesn't mean it's coming from the light. And so you can set up your beautiful space and you can be talking to spirit, but if you haven't checked where the source of that information is coming from, tricksters work in that space all the time. So the information or the car accident picture or image that you perceive when you tune in to serve that person might not be coming from the light. So we check the source of the information. Is that of the light? Meaning, is that true? Is it helpful? Is it empowering? Is it unifying? And if you get a no, you know that the issue actually here is with you as the reader. And that's a responsibility that we need to be able to hold and commit ourselves to if we're going to work in the light, if we're going to help people awaken and connect to their own beautiful truth. So as a beginning reader, I wouldn't encourage you to be playing in the field of passing on information about guiding someone into a set in stone future, unless you're offering tools for that person to be able to shift their timelines, or whether the language it is offered, not projected, and that it is opened as an image and that the language around it is really cautious. Sometimes as a reader, this can just be part of your training, that you get these precognitive experiences. And this happened to me over and over and over again until I went, okay, I get it. You've proven it to me enough. I believe that it's possible for psychic abilities to be real. I get it. I understand. You don't need to keep affirming this to me. So it was a gift to myself personally. It wasn't something that needed to be shared. Sometimes we have these experiences in like the astral plane and things as well. So we can have like precognition. Sometimes I do dream things that are going to happen in my client sessions or a piece of information that comes through. But if it's of a predictive nature, the same approach comes through. Is this information coming from the light? Is this information for their higher self? Is it literal? Is it metaphoric? How can I place this as an offering from a space of love that creates zero fear, that is here with intention to empower the person in front of me, where they've still got free will to say, no, that's not what I want. Or yes, that's what I want to focus and work towards. What are the practical steps? Like this can be such a beautiful art, but you can see that it's a little bit more complex in a sense than just, oh, the psychic pieces falling in place here. This is how I get rid of it, or this is how I deliver it. The thing with a beautiful mystical piece of information is that it comes with a lot of energy, and that can be a challenge as a reader too. So if you're picking up on stuff and it sort of drops directly down from your channel, so it's kind of coming from source, your higher self, you feel the light in it, you feel the truth in it. It comes with this sort of like momentum or this energy behind it, much like this video that I'm recording for you today. It would have been really challenging for me just to kind of let this pass or let it go. There was a lot of support and guidance and insight and information that came in around it. And it comes with like a need to pass that information as energy into the physical reality. So sometimes it's nice just to draw it, just to write it out, to verbalize it on your phone in a audio message. Or if it's something that happens over and over and over again, say like the same message comes up 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and it's for a friend, or I'd say probably just a friend, because if it's a client, let divinity do its thing, and I'll explain that to you a little bit more. Sometimes it could be a practice thing, and the practice isn't about the accuracy of the information. It's the practice of will, permission, and etiquette, meaning you would be much more, or you would be better off to call your friend, if that's how close you are, and say, hey, I had this dream and it keeps repeating itself. Would you be open to hearing the information, or would you like to hear the information, or should I just let it go? Because sometimes you're a conduit for something, right? You've received something that the other person isn't present enough in the moment to receive. It's a part of your practice. There are other reasons as to why we have these direct experiences where we are challenged or taken through a piece of information where we also need to be able to hold secrets. Holding a secret is a strange thing to say, but it comes with a responsibility where I know things about my clients that their partners don't know, that their loved ones don't know. That is something that they've bought, entrusted me with as a piece of information they've let me see. We've addressed it so that we can work with it consciously in a safe space, and that's exactly where it needs to stay. You've got to be able to let it go, even if it's something that you feel like you could gossip to a friend about or go and share with your partner with. It's sacred information. So sometimes the testing is around, can you hold that piece of information in the light of your heart without letting it affect you, without letting it take root in your own reality, without making it, taking the power away from the person that you're picking up information on in the first place. So yes, it's useful, but the delivery of it is so important. And until we feel confident with where that information's coming from, is it from the light? Is it literal or metaphoric? And what are the steps to either arrive at that space or what are the steps to shift away from that information or guidance, or to change the potential outcome? We always need to be able to have movement. And that's one of the mystical laws, right? That everything is in motion and everything is in movement. So if we can see this far ahead, okay, well, what's the outcome of that, or what's before it? And see if we can pick up more data and information around here. So don't be afraid, if you are a reader, to slow right down. And if you have to sit there with your client and you're in silence for 3 minutes, but you end up delivering a sentence that changes their life positively, beautiful. You don't have to rush through this space. That's why setup is really important too, because pictures and images as well as sounds are something that we need some discernment around. I don't often receive random pictures and images from out and around here. I'm working with particular guides when it comes to that. I'm clearing my filters regularly. I'm receiving insights from my higher self. I'm not really open to an endless space of imagery. It's kind of filtered through their protection in a sense. Because just like words and sounds and telepathy, we can pick up on these pieces, but they aren't necessarily from the field of the person you're even reading. You could be picking up on their neighbor or someone else. So our accuracy in all of this, it means that our setup needs to be absolute precision, that our channel is really nice and clear, that we're super grounded in our body so as that we can feel in our hearts a resonance and a love and a lightness from the information, that our own ego is out of the way so as that the data and information doesn't become about serving ourselves. Meaning, if you have a premonition, you feel excited about that because you can feel the actuality and the truth of it, and you make that about you, you've lost touch with what it is that's being, as the vessel, as the messenger, you've lost touch with it. If you've made it about your ego, you've made it about your power versus supporting the power of somebody else. So, as a reader, it's important to have the discipline and the discernment and the skills and resources to go and sit in front of multiple different readers. And I want you to go and see, how does it feel to receive from this person? Intending, we need to be able to not merge. We need to be able to clear our field if information comes through that doesn't resonate, that somehow takes seed because there's either a weakness there, or because the energy was super strong, or it was a potential reality that we've fed in another timeline and it's been brought into our awareness. We need these tools and resources to be able to navigate our matrix and to be able to clear this stuff effectively. Sometimes it's a karmic contract. Sometimes it's a past life with the person that's in front of you. And so there's something that pops up to the surface afterwards that ends up being a really beautiful teaching. I've had this experience before. I was told certain people would die in my life, or I'd end up sick with this, or, whatever it was. And they sort of festered in the background of my matrix, and all of my decisions were made around this darkness that was there, or this fear that started to blossom. And I really had to work towards looking at what my triggers and my weaknesses were around that, and why it was I let it in and why I held it there. But where was my resonance? Where was my match? Where was my fear? And then shifted in that way. A beautiful example of that, and I've shared with you before, someone said, don't go down the psychic reading path, go down the nursing. It's way too hard. You'll end up losing your mind, blah, 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 blah. And if I had listened in that moment to the more easeful decision to go back to university, to go and do, or to go to university, to go and do nursing, to go down that road, I wouldn't be in a space where I'd be helping other people with this right now, where I do feel on purpose, where I have been able to grow, where I feel more myself than I was back then. It doesn't mean that that path was necessarily wrong, but from my discernment, I look at this, would that be my highest path? No, I get a clear no, and it wasn't for me. So what's sitting in the space with that person as they pass on that information, I could say, thank you so much for your transmission. What it's clarified for me is that that's not true or real. So I can actually let that timeline go. So in some sense, it served me, right? But I needed a certain amount of discipline and discernment to have a look at that and not make a fear response, or make a decision from a fear response of, oh, well, it's going to take me ages to start making a living in this. How am I going to survive? I just went, no, this is okay for me. And so you can see the nature of this work and how our discernment and our clarity, but also our relationship with the information that comes through, doesn't need to be fleeting. How we have this opportunity to inquire with the information, how it's important to learn to be able to hold something. And to be with it, even if we arrive at a space where we go, oh shit, that outcome did end up happening. It's not our responsibility to make these decisions for the people we're potentially picking up on information for. And that's another thing that I was going to say before. If you are a reader, or you're a psychic reader, or you're playing this in this domain, you're learning, you want to be of service to people, you've done a couple of readings for your clients, you never reach out to your clients and say, I've got data and information for you. It came through in my dreams. You need to book a spot. That's what we call manipulation. Okay. So there's a whole other plane that exists above us and beyond us that is of light. Your higher self, my higher self, beautiful, angelic, just like I emphasize the lower astral, you have worlds and realms and dimensions of absolutely beautiful and incredible beings that I see playing a beautiful part in our awakening and encouraging us to step bravely into our soul's path and discover our purpose and fulfill these beautiful soul contracts. There isn't a crossover there that someone's higher self's going to come and find you and say you need to book the session because they're not conscious enough to do so yet. No. We have to be able to let all of that stuff go. Even if there is a contract, the person needs to arrive at a space where they're consciously using their will in order to enter into a space where their heart is beautiful and open, where they've used their own discernment to book that session, where they are ready, because there is a timing to all of this. So, on the off occasion, I have passed on messages to a family member or a close friend, but never without permission. I know that other people set up different rules. I know of someone who, if they receive something 3 times, they ask, but they do a different type of work. They're not actually working in the realm of psychic abilities, they're doing body work. So they're doing body work. If that randomly happens, they wouldn't just tell the person. Again, you ask a question, are you open to receiving this? Every now and then I get a psychic premonition, bring it into the light. So sometimes the cognitive piece and the information and the what do I do with this and is it of the future or is it not? This is your training camp too. So some people come into this space just like the beautiful woman who asked this question, who's obviously having precognitive information, and she's been learning with me over the last 3.5 months as to how to access these psychic abilities within us and to consciously stimulate them and to start to inquire and build a relationship with energy and the support and the help that's around us in a nice, strong, structured and clear way. Is that as a byproduct, she's starting to receive these precognitive pictures and images, and this is quite normal. And sometimes this is where people stop. I know of somebody who would dream things before they happened. It used to frighten her because she didn't know what to do with the information. But all of these experiences, if you can now make this journey about you, your evolution and the becoming, or, entering into a full expression of your mystic or your seer or your psychic or your visionary, that this beautiful expression here comes with your own lessons and learnings that are going to be in support of your awakening. So it's not always about being the messenger. As I said, sometimes we need to be able to get silent. Sometimes it's about building the discernment to recognize and realize where the source of that information is coming from. Perhaps it's that in the dream space we're merging with other people, and it's about being more directive in that place. And so all of this, it's the retrospect of realizing, and this still happens to me. Sometimes I do a reading for someone and I don't pass on a particular piece of information because I think, oh, I'll get to that later, or not really sure if that's important. I'll just kind of pass it because I don't stop and pause and lean into it for a moment. That's a space where afterwards I could have been like, oh, I kind of wish that I'd passed that piece of information on because I did see that. But that's just about me and my ego. And so whilst it could be valuable, the outcome has already happened. It's come to fruition. Here it is. We're not always here to stop or prevent negative experiences from unfolding. And negative experiences or challenging experiences, if you want to look at them from a space of neutrality, these obstacles are the things that really give us the best teachings, that give us the best learnings, that give us the best opportunity to have a look at what's hidden beneath and to bring it to the surface so that we become more conscious moving forward. And so while you might book a psychic reading, anticipating that you're going to sit there and the person's going to open up this passageway and this timeline with all this information. This is how your future is going to be. I'd question why you're giving your power away to somebody else to dictate that for you right away. Generationally, we do see a difference. So if I'm reading for someone that's 60 or 70, their path is a little bit more set in stone. If I'm looking at someone who is before their Saturn return to their 35s, there's a different type of information that starts to come through because we have these periods or patterns where I see archetypal shifts, and they can too offer different perspectives as to what it is that we're learning from the current experience. Just keep me on track, please. I'm getting open, 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 expansive, expansive, expansive. It's lovely because I'm excited by all of this and I really want to wrap it up and empower you with this as to how to work with it, how to spot this. Um, and that 40 to 50, we've got, okay, we're working with, you got to look at things like trauma and density and programming, where you come from, where your limitations are, what your beliefs are. All of this stuff has an effect on our clarity. And so there's different techniques, there's different practical applications of things that will come through after you've received a piece of information, if that's your journey. Meaning, I've had to learn how to transform things that have been really challenging for me through practical application in order to experience a shift internally so that my life looks different on the outside. I'm not different to you. But that journey of transformation gives me the curiosity and the key to be able to have a look at the same patterns and movements in somebody else's energy. And a lot of this has to do with our own power, because each and every one of you have the ability to be able to build a relationship with your higher self, or with your guides, or with Gaia, or with these beautiful beings of light that are around. But it's the blockages or the thresholds or the ego or the trauma or the pain that prevents us from being able to access that light and information or that clarity. And so we need to get really good at altering our state of being in order to be we need to get clear at clearing ourselves, energetic hygiene. Obviously, there's the nervous system support piece. And everybody is wired really differently. And that's where the art of language begins to blossom as we trust more and give it a shot to be able to channel. So safe spaces where you can practice readings, where things might not always turn out how you expected, or perhaps the information resonated with you, or perhaps it didn't. It's still going to be a learning experience. But in that space, you want to make sure that the people involved are empowered enough to be able to go, doesn't resonate with me, I've got the tool, I can clear that out of my field. Oh, that person merged with me a little bit. This is how I separate myself. What is mine and what is not? And even just to be able to inquire with the data and information. So, the archetype of the psychic or the seer or the oracle is very grounded, and I'm pointing here in the past, to predicting the future. The evolution of that archetype and the way that I see this moving forward is that it's more about helping people see the truth of their current reality, and then beginning to participate in the co-creation of their reality by casting their awareness in a particular direction with an intention of experiencing a particular outcome or contributing in a particular way, but it's in alignment with the soul piece, meaning as above, so below, but that you're in alignment on all levels of your being. So your physical body is coming there with you too. Your mental body is coming there with you too. Your emotional body is coming there with you too. And none of these can be separate from each other. So this is can limit our perception and our information. And that's the beauty of the discovery. So it's not that we talk about precognition in a way that it can be really dangerous, and it can, in the hands of somebody that hasn't isn't currently aware of how to translate some of that imagery, or to check where it comes from. If you aren't in a space where you feel empowered enough to be able to say no, as an example, in your everyday life, then it's probably not the time to go and have a reading with someone that focuses on foresight. Guidance should come with, if you're looking at outcomes, particular steps to help you arrive at that space. And then if you arrive at that space, what does it feel like? What's the outcome? Because you can share a vision or a transmission with somebody in that space that allows their energy to be organized, where the essence of the outcome lands in their heart, and they can actually begin to co-create that beautiful reality in a really positive way, or to make a decision based on how it feels in their heart if it's a little bit further out of their awareness. But this is the beautiful art, right? That we need to be reading, and that the language that comes through is resonant to the person that's in front of you based on their level of consciousness. And that we slow down enough and build a relationship with spirit so that the transmission is helpful, that it's empowering, that it keeps somebody curious, that we're not that they're not relying on us, that this leads to a path of further self-discovery. And this is where I think it can be really helpful. Sometimes things will just drop in. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I've, again, just take it into energy, write it down. I used to have like little folders and things like that. I'd just take notes of stuff that I'd be like, oh, this is going to happen this week in the collective, or this friend is going to have this experience if it came into my awareness. And that way I've just kind of passed it on, I've landed it, I've grounded it, and eventually I'd just chuck it out. Sometimes I'd just cross it off once it had happened. But that was at a time where I needed more proof. I needed more evidence-based experiences. So it's that when I set up my space and I went to facilitate a session for somebody, I wasn't just playing tennis with my ego the entire time, right? That I can go in and really trust what it is that's coming through, where it's coming from. But that means that that setup needs to be there too. So if all of this stuff interests you, you can see that I like to look at things from like a fine-tooth comb. You'll feel that in a transmission with me. If you will feel that I set the space up where you're in an environment where you go, oh, this is like an offering. Oh, this is waking something up with me. Oh, that bit doesn't resonate with me. Where you're the one that's empowered to work with this or not. And you should always feel like you have a choice at the end of that. That there is roads towards your future goals, all these other pieces, should land. Sometimes the timing can be off. Timing is a really challenging thing. I find this challenging as a reader. Also, may I add that I'm not on some form of a pedestal here. I've learnt from my own mistakes. I've passed on messages that afterwards I've thought, you know what? I need to go back and check that. Hold on a second. What state of being was I in? Hold on a moment. What was my intention prior to that session? Did I make that reading about me? All of these questions need to be contemplated, right? And it's in reflection or response to our own inner work. So use these beautiful opportunities if you do have this cognizant piece kind of surfacing or dropping in, to get to know yourself better, to have a look at how you respond to information when it arrives in your awareness, and to start to ask different questions. Because the way you ask questions in that space is the same way that you're going to ask questions when you're in a client space. There was one more piece I wanted to touch on here. Fear-based readings without an outcome. So say someone in your family is going to die, you've got a disease, a sickness, and an illness. I don't see this. Honestly, often ends up resolving in like an ending, meaning that we don't have the capacity. We're scared of letting go. We're scared of the change. We're scared of the grief. We're scared of the feeling, or we feel unsafe in the future or whatever it is. That is an absolute red flag if that information is passed on to you and it puts you into a state of fear. Okay, it's a red flag. And you can almost acknowledge that that information has come through and it's not true because it hasn't passed through that person's heart. It hasn't passed through the filter of consideration or compassion. It hasn't come through the space of love. And sometimes that means, and it doesn't make the person evil, okay, it just makes them unaware in that moment. But if, meaning people pick shit up, the psychics pick stuff up because we're playing in this domain. It doesn't mean I still get possessed every now and then, but I have to be able to recognize when that has happened and to be able to clear my energy. And if I can't do it in that moment because I feel too weak, I need to be able to ask somebody else that I trust to be able to do it for me. Because this is the space that we're playing in. Just like if you're working in the gym, every now and then you're going to lift something just a little too heavy and you're going to tweak your shoulder. Are you going to live with a tweaked shoulder and keep lifting heavy weights, or do you adjust your practice a little bit, right? So it's no different. And we need this type of responsibility. And this is where ethical intuition really comes in. So I think it's great practice if you want to work with this, or if you want to explore your psychic abilities, if you know they're there, but these are the questions that you felt afraid of asking. Come and work with me. I'm opening up the waitlist for the House of Mystics. Actually, we've got one finishing, and then I'm going to open up for enrollments in April. So there's a waitlist there, which has a fair few people on it already. If you're on the waitlist, you're going to get priority boarding, meaning that you're going to be invited to enroll before it goes up into my emails or to my Instagram, to the public in a space. So you get first opportunity. If the space fills up with that waitlist, that's it. But this is a really beautiful space where we look in depth at all of these different qualities, where we learn to inquire with energy. And I give you the structure so that you can set a beautiful and safe space up for yourself that involves nudging up against some of your own unique challenges. And instead of forcing your expansion, laying out the path though it's there as you're ready to begin to explore your inner senses, but get to know yourself really deeply in the process, because the way that these unfold is not always the same. Sometimes people have a top-down kind of awakening where they're getting lots of knowing, but there's no vision. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling, but they want more data or information. Sometimes it's just a curiosity, whatever it is, this all starts to shift and change the intention, as it does if you want to be of service to somebody else with these skills and resources, or whether you would like to apply this to be able to deepen your relationship and your connection to life, because energy is what allows for us to be able to connect with the truth, to see, feel, sense, and know the truth of a situation, so that again we can make informed decisions and take action from a space of love. And so there's a wholeness there. There is a coming home. There is a deeper relationship with our physical world as well, and presence and health and well-being. It doesn't separate us from all of that. So it's a very embodied experience. And whilst I've talked about these pieces, some of it you might be like, gosh, isn't that just like a little bit too tentative? Well, it's a very powerful position to be in, to offer guidance to someone who is ready to make great changes in the world. One person that awakens to the truth of their experience and fulfills their soul mission has an absolute ripple effect on this world. And so I see us all distinct and working together. And if we're working in the light, we're helping this planet heal. We're helping awaken humanity. We're helping fulfill these beautiful contracts that ultimately lead to the embodiment of our true selves. And I see you as love, I really do. And we're looking at removing the conditions to that beautiful expression as an embodiment here in this human form. And this human form is connected to a beautiful ecosystem. You're not separate from the plants or the bees or the trees or the rivers. You're a part of that system. It's when we've disconnected from our body, we disconnect from that ecosystem. And that's where disease and illness and all these other pieces manifest. So we need to be in the body. And I'll emphasize this over and over and over and over and over again, how to get grounded, because sometimes we up and flee. But there's a lesson and a learning in that. And we bring in the soul's perspective so that we can align with the mystical laws that govern our reality, right? That help us move in flow, that help us respond from truth, that have us move with health. Yeah. Where we're looking at things like vibration. Okay. Yes, it comes with a bit of responsibility. Once you awaken these pieces, you can't really unsee unless you disconnect from your body. But if there's a curiosity there and you're being called from your heart, from your light, and you're curious and you want to ask me some questions, please get in contact. Or if it's a big yes from you, you can already feel that in your whole being and you want to feel safer in your practice, or there is just a curiosity piece, jump yourself on the wait list. There's going to be payment plans and things like that available. And it will go over a space of 3.5 months where you'll be equipped to at least ask these questions in your own practice and receive some answers. Some of you don't even know your yes or your no. So we start from a very basic lens, and there's a nice slow expansion there. We'll leave you with territory outside of our time together as to what it is that you do with all of this. And for some of you, you might not know. You might feel like you have a slight calling, or you've got these beautiful skills and abilities, but you don't know how to apply them. This relationship you build with your higher self will give you the best foundations for you to be able to respond and continue to grow in that way. So all of it is purposeful. Your precognitions, your awareness of the present moment. We're reading energy for me personally in order to provide guidance, for others to be able to help someone heal. There are lots of different reasons as to why it is we're looking at energy for somebody else. And it works almost similar. The way we perceive for ourselves is very similar to how we perceive for somebody else. So there's a journey here of self-love and self-compassion and feeling safe in your own body and being that we're constantly working at too. Thank you for being here with me today. By no means has any of this information come forward as a criticism. As I said, I've learned from my own mistakes. I've learned from getting this wrong. I've learned from passing on information that I didn't have discernment about. And all of that leads to being in a space where even where I've learned from readers where I know they've been passing on information from less than love energies or entities, what a beautiful experience that was for me. Okay. And sometimes the lesson comes later. Sometimes it comes in 6 months, 12 months. Sometimes the information we pass through of a timeline doesn't resonate with the person in front of us for 5 years' time. And they go, oh, it was so weird. I had a reading with you and I just thought you were absolutely mad. I got this last year. But it all ended up happening. It just took me 5 years to accept the truth. So I probably went a little bit too far far. So sometimes that's our intention. Just zoom in a little bit. Let's just have a look at the next sort of 12 months. What's the pattern? What's the movement? But this is our dance with it all, and where we refine our practice and we become better as practitioners. And I'm always open and willing to grow and learn. And as students of this beautiful art that are expressing information that is constantly in change too, as we expand as a collective, we need to be really receptive to the sharpening of our own discernment all the time. Okay, all the details for the House of Mystics will be listed below. I'd love you to join me if you do just have any questions. You can pop them there too. I hope this finds you well, and we'll catch up soon. Goodbye.